Hey guys, so this week you have been learning about space and all the things that we need or we have on our planet that help us survive here. And you've been learning about the accommodations we need whenever we travel out into space and how we do that safely. So this is kind of like a summary, like a little recap for you guys. You're working on a project where you have discovered a new planet and you're going to take a spacecraft out there and you have to tell all the essential things that you guys need and have to have. So this is a good resource to kind of go back to whenever you're doing that assignment. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Space exploration timeline. We haven't been studying space and we haven't been out to space for very long. Okay, so 1961 was whenever our first flight took place. And you can kind of read the timeline here, but another important thing to look at, it was, just a little over 20 years ago that we started this International Space Station. So it's not even as old as I am. It is older than you guys though, but that's pretty new in our history. So if you think about it, like how far and how much more are we going to do in the next 20 years? If we have this International Space Station, what comes next? Are we going to go and start living on the moon or Mars or what? So it's kind of interesting, and this is a new and uprising thing and a lot of stuff to be learned in this. Let me move me. Okay, so important characteristics. All right, so there were three main things that you went over that you should have picked up on that make life habitable on Earth. So we have gravity here, right? And it keeps the Earth rotating around the sun. It keeps us on that planet. And you did talk a lot about microgravity with the International Space Station, and that's the lack of gravity, all right? And in microgravity on the International Space Station, since we're not having to stand up and walk around and fight gravity, our muscles start to weaken because they're not doing as much work as they're used to, and our bones start weakening because they're not holding up as much as they're used to. So you saw on the International Space Station how they worked out with their exercise equipment to fight those battles. So that's something very important that we have to combat whenever we are out in space. Another important thing that you learned about is the atmosphere. We have one on the Earth. It's just right. It has the right amount of oxygen in it that we need to breathe. It's made of nitrogen. There's also carbon dioxide in it that plants need, right? There's water vapor. There's all kinds of other gases in it, but just little, we call them trace amounts because there's not many of them, but it's mostly nitrogen and oxygen what makes up our atmosphere. And the carbon dioxide, it also helps. It's not only good for plants, it helps heat our atmosphere and heat our Earth, because as the energy from the sun comes in, our ozone layer keeps that energy within the Earth. And that carbon dioxide heats it up. So it kind of regulates the temperature on our planet. And our atmosphere, like I just talked about, the ozone layer, it contains the ozone layer, and that ozone layer protects us from UVB rays and charged particles that come from the sun that cause sunburns and things like that. So the atmosphere is very important. Then we have the Earth's proximity to the sun. So the distance from the sun is very important. We're just in that habitable zone. If we were closer, it would be too hot. If we were further away, it would be too cold. So it's the perfect temperature for living things, and that's very important. All right, spacesuits was another big thing that you guys learned about, and these are some of the important things that you need to know. What's the point of the spacesuit? It protects us, or the astronauts, from all the different characteristics in space. All right, so there's no pressure in space, right? So it regulates the pressure with the different materials in it and water and all of that stuff. It regulates the temperature, because in the sun, space can be very hot. In the shadows, it can be very, very cold. So it regulates their temperature, and it also supplies us with oxygen to breathe, and it removes the carbon dioxide, because without oxygen we can't breathe. With too much carbon dioxide, that's poisonous to us. These two pictures on here, I thought they were very cool. These are astronauts doing the spacewalk. You can see over here on this one, you can see the Earth behind him, and that little glowing thing, that's how thin our atmosphere is. And so that's very important that we keep it clean. But you see him out there doing work, and you see how he's tethered on, and you should know that he's tethered on, because if not, he would float away, right? That's a safety procedure. If you look over here on this side, you can see he's got the gold cover over his face, and that protects them from the sunlight, right? That's like the astronaut sunglasses. So I thought those were cool pictures to share there. Rockets. Okay, another thing, space accommodations, things that we have to combat to get to space. The number one thing that we had to learn is, okay, how do we defy gravity, right? The rockets need to be strong enough to lift and get all the way out of Earth's atmosphere and away from Earth's gravity pull. So we have to have very, very powerful rockets, and they have to withstand high temperatures as they're leaving and re-entering the atmosphere, because going really fast like that and pushing up against all the atmosphere's particles makes it very very high temperatures. And it must also be able to re-enter and land safely. All right, so those are very important things. If we just crash back into the Earth, right, we didn't do much good. So we have to be able to land safely. And in 2011, I thought this was pretty cool. America retired our space shuttle. So we haven't had a space shuttle or a rocket that we could get to outer space in America since 2011. But SpaceX, which is a private owned company, but it's based in America, the Dragon rocket was just launched this year. And so I don't know if some of you saw it. I had shared it on my Facebook. I watched it. It was pretty cool. And over here, this astronaut, that's just a dummy astronaut, but he's flying in a Tesla car. That was done by SpaceX. So that was one of their test launches. And I think this is the SpaceX one too. Here on this picture, this is the Soyuz. That is the Russian spacecraft that hopefully you learned a little bit about when you watched the video. And this one over here was the space shuttle. So that's the one that we had in America that was retired in 2011. So, and you can see with these blast off, they have to be very, very, very powerful things. All right. So the International Space Station, it was started in 1998 by Russia, actually. Now there are 15 other nations that contribute to the International Space Station, and America is one of those. And astronauts live and work there to study things that help us to better understand long space travel. And they normally stay a few months at a time, like 3 months to 6 months and so forth. There's a very cool documentary that I normally show about an American astronaut who lives in Houston, actually, and he went up there for 360 something days, almost a year. It's called A Year in Space because it was roughly a year, and he was doing things and working on things that were geared towards traveling to Mars, things that we need to know, like how to grow food, how to recycle, water, how to get rid of our waste, how to reuse some of our waste possibly. There's a lot of things that goes into the International Space Station, some things that help us here on the planet, and some things that better our understanding for venturing out to new planets. So hopefully this kind of pointed out some of the key things that you need to know in this unit, and it will help you whenever you are doing your project. If you have any other questions or anything that you don't really understand, please get with me or Miss Weaver, whoever your teacher is, and we will help you out. But hopefully this helped you a little bit. Hope you enjoyed.